Hey DevCon, I'm Jason Fiber, the Chief Operating Officer of THX. THX's mission is to make entertainment experiences better. We got our start in the late 80s when our founder, you may have heard of him, George Lucas, walked into a movie theater showing The Empire Strikes Back and was horrified by the condition of the room. George made it his mission to provide theater owners with an incentive to improve their auditoriums and offered to certify them if they upgraded the quality of the sound, picture, and overall experience to his standards. By the time Return of the Jedi was released, THX certified theaters were everywhere, and moviegoers knew that if they saw the THX certified plaque at a theater, they were going to have an excellent experience. You may also remember our signature Deep Note trailer that played just before the movie started. For the last 37 years, we've continued to push the bounds of entertainment and technology to ensure high-fidelity audio and video experiences. So, when consumers see the THX logo on a product, they know it will lead to a top-shelf experience, just the way George envisioned it. Pushing beyond cinema, THX followed up with the THX Certification for Consumer Electronics program. We brought the same exacting standards to home theater products, and those partners who took the time to build their product with THX quality in mind were granted the privilege of applying the THX certified mark to their products. As products have shrunk, THX has continued to certify products that drive the entertainment experience portable, and we are proud to have certified several Razer products, including the excellent Razer Namo Pro desktop speaker system, the Opus headphones, the Hammerhead Pro earbuds. A product earns THX certification status by passing a slew of over 400 tests. The end result? An exceptional audiovisual experience right out of the box. THX has continued to push the boundaries of quality and has moved into technologies, starting with our patented award-winning amplifier technology, THX AAA. In addition to a myriad of partners who have implemented THX AAA technologies into their products, THX recently announced its first direct-to-consumer product, THX Onyx. THX Onyx is a portable DAC amplifier featuring the highest-performing THX AAA mobile product, THX AAA 78. When listening to content via THX Onyx, you'll hear music with exceptional clarity and fidelity that packs enough power to run studio-grade headphones and even desktop speakers. The result is a listening experience that feels like you're sitting in the recording studio, listening to the playback directly from the master tapes. Now, THX is applying its impossibly high standards to gaming products. We've worked hard to bring greater immersion and authentic surround sound via the launch of THX Spatial Audio. Last year, THX partnered with Razer to launch a Windows 10 application appropriately called THX Spatial Audio. Now, everyone who owns a pair of headphones and a PC can hear the sounds of dystopian megacities and distant battlefields come alive in 360 degrees. You can try the THX Spatial Audio app for free by heading to the Razer website. Or, put on your headphones and hear the difference THX Spatial Audio can make for content with our iconic Deep Note trailer, Genesis. Today, we are proud to introduce you to our latest product, the THX Spatial Audio Game Engine plugin. We know that THX Spatial Audio adds more to video games when incorporated directly into the design and architecture, so we are thrilled to announce we've worked with our friends at VisiSonics to develop a suite of THX Spatial Audio plugins compatible with the Unity, Unreal, and Wise game engines. And, as a paid upgrade, gamers and audiophiles looking to customize their experience can capture and integrate their personal head-related transfer function, or HRTF, directly into the game for more lifelike sound that more closely aligns with how an individual perceives and localizes sound in the real world. With that, I'd like to introduce you all to Michel Henein, VP of Product at VisiSonics, who helped develop the THX Spatial Audio plugins. Michel?
Thanks for the intro, Jason. At VisiSonics, we are thrilled to be working with Razer and THX to provide the world's most advanced spatial audio technology. The technological roots of THX Spatial Audio began as a research project led by Drs. Ramani Dureswamy and Dmitry Zotkin from the University of Maryland to help the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, or VA. The VA needed a highly accurate virtual reality simulation that enabled soldiers suffering from combat-related blindness to learn to use their hearing to navigate the world both safely and effectively. The system proved to be a remarkable success. This very same system is also in the process of being deployed with U.S. fighter pilots and special operations soldiers to accurately render critical communications and sound cues during operations. We're thrilled to be able to bring this bleeding-edge technology to game developers in partnership with THX. THX Spatial Audio works by accurately simulating the physics of how sound propagates through space. When we perceive sound, it arrives straight to your ears, and also thousands of copies of the same sound also bounce off the environment from all directions, reaching your ear, known as reverberation. It is this combination of accurately rendering a given sound's reverberation coming from all directions within a space and its corresponding direct path that sets THX Spatial Audio from other solutions. So we've developed a series of plugins designed to empower game developers by making the authoring process of physically accurate room acoustics easy, which renders in real time. THX Spatial Audio is available not only as an API for custom game engines, but also as dev-friendly plugins for Unity, Unreal, and Wise. The plugins are easily configured to support super accurate object-based audio, ambisonics up to 7th order, as well as channel-based audio, such as stereo, 5.1 or 7.1, all within the same plugin. Here's a simple demonstration of what THX Spatial Audio for game developers sounds like. To hear the full 3D effect, be sure to put on headphones for the remainder of this presentation. Now, let's walk through how easy it is for game developers to be able to author immersive 3D sound with THX Spatial Audio tools. For this particular presentation, we're going to demonstrate the Unity plugin. First, we'll need to import the THX Spatial Audio Unity package into the scene. Next, we're going to set up the Unity scene to ensure THX Spatial Audio will be enabled by making sure the desired sample rate is set, our Spatializer plugin and ambisonics decoder are selected. Once the Unity plugin is fully enabled, you can see that all the necessary game objects are available. We're going to be focusing on the audio source and virtual room objects for this walkthrough. Before we continue, we'll need to enable the main camera to use the THX Spatial Audio audio listener component. Now, let's go ahead and create a simple object in Unity. Let's go with a sphere. Next, we're going to add an audio source component to that sphere so that it can emit sound in 3D. The THX Spatial Audio audio source component has all kinds of powerful parameters to adjust as needed. Let's attach an audio clip to this object to hear it emit sound. We can move it around in 3D space to test how it sounds. Now that we have an object emitting a direct path to the listener, let's add reverb reflections to really make it sound even more realistic. We do this by simply adding a virtual room around the object. The virtual room can be fully customized by changing the material properties of the room, so it can be very reflective, very absorptive, or however you like. We have pre-made virtual room presets for simple use, or for more advanced development, a developer can customize each surface material to their liking. Here's what the default room sounds like. Notice how the reflections add so much more realism to the sound. It's almost like being there. That's the basics of the THX Spatial Audio for game developers. While this demo showed our Unity plugin, the Wwise and Unreal plugins are also super friendly to work with, allowing developers to focus on creating content. We're thrilled to announce an opportunity for game developers to get their hands on this amazing audio technology for their game titles by filling out a sign-up form after DevCon. So if you're serious about immersive 3D sound for your project, you're going to want to take THX Spatial Audio for a test drive. Thank you.
Hey again, DevCon. Before we move to the live QA session with you all, Michael and I want to introduce you to some friends of ours. Frank Rosay, game producer from iLLOGIKA, and Renaud Ostrowski of Vibe Avenue. They're building a game with the THX Spatial Audio plugin and will take us through their experiences working with it. Frank from iLLOGIKA has worked on games like Hyperscape, Modern Combat, and Far Cry, and Renaud has worked with Tribes of Midgard, Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, and Operation Tango. Now before we start, Frank and Renaud, you all built a demo reel of your upcoming game. Do you mind introducing it?
Sure, go ahead, Renaud, if you want.
So we had the pleasure to work with you guys at THX to build a little demo and how the THX Spatial plugin, Spatial Audio plugin, works. And so we went through this. We designed the whole sounds that you're going to hear throughout. And yeah, just take it away. It might be easier to just show it, then we can speak about it afterwards. Hi, my name is Renaud Ostrowski and I'm a sound designer and technical sound designer at the award-winning studio Vibe Avenue in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Today I have the pleasure to talk to you about the new and exciting THX Spatial Audio plugin for Wwise. We're going to show you how to set it up and also some of its functionalities. This new exciting tool will give sound designers a new way to approach integration and to create immersive soundscapes very easily. The THX Spatial Audio plugin has built-in spatial audio, so 3D positioning, audio priorities, elevation, and true reflections right out of the box. With the help of your friendly programmer, the installation of the plugin, in this particular case for Unreal Engine, is very easy. Just a few lines of code added to the existing C++ classes, copying a few libraries that come with the plugin, and following the provided documentation, and the setup is complete. Same on the Wwise side. Just copy the provided folders and a plugin directly inside of your installation path for Wwise, and you're ready to create. Our partners at iLLOGIKA, also an award-winning game studio from Montreal, created us a great showcase map. It has a variety of objects of different textures like pipes, scaffolding, ventilation fans, and much more to show you what this plugin can do. And since we're creating a horror game, we try to make it as spooky as possible. The Unreal integration is also very easy to do. Just drag and drop AK ambient objects from Unreal Engine into your map or on objects. Or you can do like what I did, which is a bit of everything. I have some AK ambients here and there for static objects, and I also created blueprints to have some moving actors and triggers to drive sounds off in the distance. You can mix and match all of these to really liven up your soundscape. The spatial capabilities are also very precise, as you can hear throughout. It helps you not having to create complicated attenuation curves. You can still create them for some other sounds, but this is a true drag and drop feature. One of the great features is the priority system. Without having to input the priorities manually, you can have multiple emitters in close proximity, and the plugin will always make you hear the one closest to you, or the emitter you're looking towards, in top priority. The elevation feature is definitely my favorite. You can actually hear the sounds coming on top of you without having to rely on filters to create the illusion. It also makes it so that your level designers won't necessarily have to rely on visual cues to drive the player's attention, either above or below, creating great moments of surprise. I hope that this short presentation got you curious of what you could achieve with the plugin and its capabilities. Thank you very much for listening.
Wow, some really cool stuff. We should mention that these are a custom video you guys made from a game that we're not ready to announce. And so you're seeing sort of a slightly redacted version of something that will be announced later. And I really appreciate you guys making something special for DevCon that we can show that doesn't reveal secrets we don't want to reveal, but also gives people tuning in a chance to see what we're working on. So let's get started and let's talk about the game and some of your work that you've done and how it's helping, bring new audio experiences to the gamers. Maybe Frank, start with you. We'd love to know from your perspective how audio is changing for game development. Would love to get a lay of the land for the industry.
For sure, sound is super important for us and for the game industry in general. We designed our game based on sound, like it's one of our core feedback. So we wanted to put as much emphasis as possible in there. And to me, sound can be sometimes even more immersive that visual can. I remember when I was like 18, close to be a young adult in '99, I went to one of my cousins and he has that 5.1 kit to play Alien vs Predator, and it was the first time I had really that immersion and experience with a sound system, and he blew my mind. He's like, I was running in this corridor, I heard all the little monsters, aliens and predators around me, and I think he made a big impact for me as a player and now as a developer. And when you guys contact us and say, oh, do you want to work on an immersive and surround system with a brand like THX, we were very, very excited, to be honest.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Renaud, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. I was just about to jump in to say that, like, to echo what Frank said, like, long gone are pretty much the days where the sound can be really an afterthought in video games. So the audio feedback has become really a critical part of immersion in modern video games, and especially for horror games. There's only so much that visual cues can give to a player to create a realistic and immersive atmosphere. So obviously sound is critical in that part. And the tools that we have at our disposal now, whether it is to be during the production process or the integration, are far superior and precise than what we used to have in the past. So we're really excited to use the advanced features that you guys have with the THX Spatial Audio plugin to really try to create a terrifying experience for the players.
Excellent. We're not doing our job if we're not terrifying players, so great to hear. Just sort of kind of following from that thread, how has the development process been different when you're using THX Spatial Audio in terms of designing a game sound?
Well, for us in this particular case, the process of creation and the designing of the sound has not changed too much, but it's really the integration approach that has become really a crucial part of it. The spatial audio possibilities of the plugin, really gives us a big array of avenues to explore, like convincing elevation, true reflections, priority systems, and stuff like that. It also allows us to drag and drop features to achieve the design goals really quickly. And I would even venture to say that the plugin is somewhat beginner friendly, but it has everything to push the boundaries of realism to really greater heights.
Well, thanks. That's a testament to the work that Mike and his team have done. Really appreciate working with us to create something that is user friendly and also can serve the advanced users as well. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Mike, or should we keep going?
I'll just add that I got to say I'm very excited to have the THX Spatial Audio integrated in this type of game where you have sound being even more critical for the user experience, being in the horror genre. I'm a fan actually, and it's funny. Frank mentioned Alien versus Predator, and that's actually a pretty defining game for me earlier on when I was in the 90s when I first played that game. So I'm just really thrilled to actually have THX Spatial Audio in this type of immersive experience for horror. I think is really fun.
Yeah, back in the 90s, Mike, when you and I were still teenagers.
Right.
So
or a little
Renaud,
older, slightly.
Yeah. So Renaud, when what was the most important thing to get right when designing the game world? Kind of curious to know what the process of deciding how to layer the game sound, and candidly, how did THX Spatial Audio help you achieve that?
In our particular case, we decided to use the plugin really as like icing on a cake, so to speak. We were using most of the solutions that we already have with audio engines that were at our disposal. But we wanted really to push it a little bit further. Since the audio feedback, without trying to reveal too much, but since the audio feedback from our projects, let's say project's main antagonist, I'm just going to leave it as vague as possible. Since it's really crucial to the player's immersion and survival, we decided to really needed to be able to pinpoint its location in 3D space really accurately, whether it is in spatialization or elevation or as below, like we've seen a little bit in the video that we've seen a bit previously. The feedback was really absolutely necessary to be able to make like split-second decisions that are critical, and with the plugin, we were able to achieve a level of precision easily that would have taken us a lot of work otherwise. So the level of immersion has been tremendously elevated with the plugin.
Cool. And what's key is really that the spatial audio is embedded in the game. It doesn't require any sort of third-party hardware or software. You play the game. THX Spatial Audio is baked in, and so everyone that buys the game out of the box is able to get the experience that you guys are trying to create from the development side. So given your experience, was there an aha moment while you were developing it that really made you rethink or think critically about the sound design or how it changed? Or put another way, is there anything that stuck out in your mind that there's something new and different about our approach to adding spatial audio to these kinds of games?
Well, as I said in the video, a little bit coldly, I'll admit. It sounded a bit scripted, but it's really true. To me, was really the elevation. The possibilities of the elevation really changed my mind on doing stuff. So again, since the positioning is really integral to the experience that we're designing, we played around with various techniques to be able to communicate the information clearly. But instead of playing with filters and designing VisiSonics and all that kind of stuff, the possibility of elevation, which was right out of the box with the plugin, gives us really a flexibility to try new ways to tailor the experience. For example, we wanted to create tension at certain points in the experience where our antagonist was going after our player, let's say. And since we didn't want to put in clear visual cues like, hey, look over there, look above you, there's a flashing light right there, we were able to do it through sound, which gives it really like a sense of surprise. And we really use the elevation settings to be able to drive the player's attention to where the source of the sound was coming from and create a really realistic sense of danger. Like, the danger is over here, it's above me to the right. So there's no guessing or confusion as to where the danger is coming from. So that's really, really special that we were able to do it like this.
Yeah, in my experience, it's always when you hear a sound that in an uncanny location that you're not expecting, where you physically look and then you kind of remember that you're not actually in the world that you're watching. And so when you hear something and you pinpoint it, you're able to immediately identify it. That's kind of that connection that I think makes a game go from good to great, is when you're so caught up in it that you actually forget you're actually in that environment and you just simply are in that environment. And sort of given that, are there different aspects in the game world that you need to think about differently when building with THX Spatial Audio? Obviously, there's a lot of controls in the plugin that allows you to control the distance from the player, the room textures and materials. Mike, I know you touched on that on your presentation earlier as to kind of what was available. So kind of given the multitude of options, I'm curious to know kind of what you were able to do with some of these new options that you might not have been able to do in the past that caused you to kind of think about it in a new light.
Well, since the game has you navigating through very various environments, whether it be like large open exteriors or super tight claustrophobic interiors, the textures and the reflection materials were really important to us. So the reverbs needed really to be precise as to what type of environment that the player is supposed to be in to create really this sense of immersion. That's when the room settings come into play. And with a bit of elbow grease from our friendly programmers that work with us, we were able to really tailor each environment with easy to use settings and reflection percentages, different transmission settings, room sizes, and all that kind of stuff. And different types of reverb and reflection material right out of the box again. Like, it doesn't need to have an extra layer on top of it. It just comes exactly with what we needed. For example, say that we have a cabin that's out in an open field at night. We were really easily able to have multiple rooms added to this particular level and have realistic exteriors and realistic interiors within the same map, and with a seamless transition in between all of them. So it really cuts down the integration time to work that way. It's really, really...
That's so exciting. And, having seen the video and seen some other stuff that you've shared with us, it really looks to be like an exciting and groundbreaking game. So really, looking forward to kind of when we can share more. Frank, I don't want to ignore you. I'm kind of curious to know, as a developer, what are some of the guiding principles and themes that you've kept in mind during the game's development? I'd be kind of curious to hear your thoughts on that.
For sure, in our game, like Renaud says, sound is a part of our feedback, and it was one of our pillars to keep the tension and the immersion really high. So we want our player to be always on their toe, to look around, to be sure that they are alone and that the antagonist is not there. And one thing I could say is that our antagonists also look around with sound. He's looking at you with the sound. So it's something that it goes both ways. So that's why it's so important in our experience. Again, having that sense of specialization in our gameplay and giving the right feedback to the player to take decision on what to do or not was something very key for us.
You just left a breadcrumb or an Easter egg, depending upon how you term it. So now everyone's going to be frantically trying to figure out from that little vague hint as to what the heck we're talking about. So
yeah, maybe.
Renaud, I'm sure you have some thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, well, how could I say without sounding a little bit poetic, let's say? Well, fear happens inside our own heads, right? It's our own psyche is a lot more efficient at creating its own sense of terror about what dangers are looming around the corner or down a dark path by suggesting, rather than showing. This design philosophy has really been a driving force behind how the sounds are designed, whether it is from our antagonist or from the player. So we really want the player to ask themselves, like, was that sound that was coming down from that dark path over there, is that an indicator of some imminent danger, or is it simply something that fell off a shelf in the distance? what if those sounds that are coming from the floor above me, are they simply house noises, or are they my impending doom? Creating fear by suggesting is really helpful in the end, like for the payoff, because jump scares are only really as efficient as what builds up to them. So we're trying to create a false sense of security and then ripping it away, or even creating doubt as to what is lurking around the corner at any given time. So that's really the type of experience that we're trying to tailor for our players.
Mike, in the next version, we should just have a make it scarier button in there somehow. Something that just amps up the tension and the and the fear. So it's pretty clear that iLLOGIKA is making a horror game. So considering that there's a horror theme, and with that genre, there's a lot of emotional manipulation, right? I mean, I think you've got it right, Renaud, where fear is inside your head. So, what are you doing to build tension? And I know, we're trying not to give too much away, but just curious to know, sort of given that light, what was the spatial audio, THX Spatial Audio plugin enabling you to do that really helps build that sense of dread and that kind of impending suspense?
Well, again, we try to create as much as possible a false sense of security combined with the dreadful atmosphere. We try to use as much also dynamics a lot, so really quiet passages to go up to some really loud ones, to really try to drive the emotions of the player where we want them to go in terms of how they feel. Also, we use a lot of rooms and reflections to drive the immersions. So also, if the experience is loud constantly, there's really nothing that stands out. So the minimalist approach also helps to create tension. So why is it so quiet at this particular moment? What's the sound that's coming up far off in the distance? Should I investigate, or should I just run away and hide? So all that combined, we're really trying to drive the emotions of the player to where we want them to be. And again, it's simply just a matter of trying to play around with what we have around us and around the players to try to put them into, again, sorry to repeat myself, but like to put them in a false sense of security to try to really rip it away at the most important time in the experience.
I'm a card-carrying member of the False Sense of Security Club, so I think I can relate pretty well. So, Mike, I'm going to turn to you for a second because, elevation is such a key element in this game, and I'm sure, both Frank and Renaud have some thoughts, but I'm curious as, working on this and the fact that it's, utilizing objects and ambisonics as sort of the key underlying technologies, how difficult is it from a technology perspective to be able to enable a lot of the, sort of height elements? Because obviously we all come out of a multi-channel surround sound world, and now we're kind of moving into a kind of more of a bubble or a sphere of audio. So, sort of given that and the fact that now we've unlocked kind of audio in areas that haven't necessarily been available in previous plugins, curious to know sort of what the thinking was as developing the plugin with this notion of height as one of the key differentiators.
That's a great question, Jason. If you recall my presentation, I talk about how we perceive sound in real life, and really, this is the technology. That's the basis of THX Spatial Audio. Really is born from technology used in simulations, the type of simulations you find in very high-end virtual reality experiences, and the whole goal is to make the user feel as if they're not wearing headphones, and that they're literally in an environment where the sense of wearing something over your ears to get sound in your ears is basically gone. So this suspension of disbelief is at its maximum point in terms of sound. And so we're able to do that because of the technology that is the basis of THX Spatial Audio. The technologies such as, head-related transfer functions, HRTFs, the type of quality HRTFs that we use, the room simulation that we do in terms of the reverberation, all of those things add just more and more cues to your brain to make you feel like you're hearing sounds not just behind you or to your right or to your left, but actually above. And in the past, you were sort of able to do it. You would kind of get a sense of maybe something was above your head, but adding, the room simulation, the quality HRTFs, all of those things sort of combine together to create a much greater sense of height and elevation. And so your brain sort of responds to it, and it sounds a lot more convincing.
Cool. Well, we could probably keep going forever, but I'm under the impression that there's a group of folks that want to ask us questions in real time. You'll probably see from some sort of a haircut or shave or different outfit that perhaps this was not recorded in real time as the Q&A. So I really greatly want to extend my thanks to Frank, Renaud, and Michael for talking about their experience with THX Spatial Audio and giving up their time both to record these as well as moving on to the live Q&A section, which we're going to move to now. So with that said, we'll conclude this unless there's anyone that wants to add anything as a closing comment.
It was really.
With that, we'll.
Sorry, I didn't want to talk over everybody else.
No, please do.
Just wanted to add, working with the plugin really changed. It has really the possibility to be a game changer in terms of everything that Mike has mentioned previously, which is really the elevation, the HRTFs, the sense of the suspension of disbelief is really probably the best way to put it. Really, it's try to create the experience as immersive as possible and really forget that you're wearing headphones. It sounds a bit like a catchphrase, but it's not. In essence, that's not what it is. It really is like not wearing headphones in terms of immersion. So it was really a great partnership to work with you guys, and to have the opportunity to try some new stuff and try new approaches was really enlightening and insightful. So we hope that the experience that we're tailoring will live up to its name, as we say.
Cool. Well, Frank.
Yeah, and on my side, but I'm very excited to work with THX and on that game, and I'm even more excited to reveal it when the time will come. So like that, maybe we can have a second conversation going a bit more into details about what we do and how we use the sound and the surround sound to tailor our experience.
Sure. Well, look, again, I really thank everyone for their time, and I think now's the time to move into the live Q&A session, and hopefully we've got some good questions, and we're looking forward to answering them. Though. So thanks again, guys. Let's turn this over to the live Q&A now. Hey, guys. Thanks for sticking around and checking out the THX session. Really appreciate everyone's attendance, and via the pre-recorded videos, you've already met my co-panelists here, Michel Henein from VisiSonics, Renaud from Vibe Avenue, and Frank from iLLOGIKA. I want to thank you guys for sticking around to help answer some questions. I see a whole bunch of questions coming in here, so we'll just dive right into it. The first question is, when can we expect to get our hands on the plugins? Well, the good news is the plugins are available now. We just need everyone that wants to check them out to fill out the form. The form is available on the Razer DevCon registration page, and we'll go through all of the submissions and start reaching out to you guys no later than a couple weeks to get everyone set up and testing the plugin. And hopefully, if you don't hear from us, we'll make sure that we get to you eventually. So I'll ask and answer that question. Next question is, just to clarify, Spatial, this is Emily B, asks, just to clarify, Spatial Audio works with any headphones or earbuds, even if they're not Razer. And I'll also answer that one. The answer is that is correct. Obviously, you don't want to have to be locked into a certain piece of hardware in order to enjoy Spatial Audio. And so the plugin works with anything that you're listening to. You can play it back on any PC, the content and the game, and of course, any connected pair of headphones will receive the Spatial Audio, because the Spatial Audio is actually included in the game itself. So it's agnostic to the hardware that you're using. All right, next question. Does the plugin work in real time, for example, for streaming? Justin S. asked that question. Mike, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, so the answer is yes. It is actually a real-time process. However, there are some aspects to this, as you can see in the Unity demonstration, where you offline have to author things and set things up in the scene. So, but the actual plugin itself runs completely real time.
Cool. All right, we'll just keep going through these here. Next question comes from Anthony Ball. Is the custom API for THX Spatial Audio available for the Android native SDK? Once again, I'll look to you, Mr. Henein.
Yeah, so at the moment, for Unity, Unreal, and Wise, we do actually have Android versions that'll run on the Android platform. We don't necessarily have an API just for Android without the use of those plugins at the moment, but that is something we'll be able to develop in the future. So definitely look for that in upcoming versions.
All right. John Robert Carr asks, is there any cost for licensing costs and plugins? So the answer, it's an easy question, but a sort of complicated answer. We have different tiers of pricing. We are as favorable as we can be to indie studios. And so once we get the submission and we get a better sense of your game and your studio, we can give you a better answer to that question. Most of these are more in the domain of some sort of guarantee, either related to HRTFs or a seat license. We'll work with you to craft a program that works for you, though. So there's not one answer, but a flexible answer that we will apply pricing based on your needs and what your studio is able to do. Next question from Michael Kasparak. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is there a C/C++ API available for those of us not using Wise or Unity or Unreal? Mike, I think that goes back to you as well.
Yes, there is a C API available, and however, that will be made available once you sign up. Just indicate that you're interested in that particular version of the plugin, and we can make arrangements to set that up and send it to you.
Cool. Sorry, Frank and Renaud, I appreciate that you guys are here, but so far we haven't had anything that I think would be relevant to you guys. So just to continue to hang out there. Next question submitted by Anonymous. Can you leverage 3D sound with physical VR spaces? Mike, I believe the answer to that one is yes. Obviously, the demo that we provided in your presentation was actually originally designed as a VR presentation. And if I'm not mistaken, the origin of the technology post the military side was to provide spatial sound for VR products. So the answer to that question is a resounding yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, this I think is a question for our developers. Anonymous asks, what kind of things could you now do with audio design that you couldn't do before? Renaud or Frank, one of you guys want to tackle that one?
Sure. Well, that we couldn't do, that we can do now that we couldn't do before, I would say it's more of what's easier to do than it's been in the past. I don't want to necessarily repeat myself compared to what we said previously in the recorded segment, but really the elevation for me is really like the big game changer in this, and also the reflections as well. Not having to necessarily record ambisonics and all that stuff, and to have sounds coming in from all directions is really something that's, at least for me, I hope it is for everyone else, but it's really game changing, and like it's breaking new grounds basically to in terms of ease of use, especially just to make sure that you can't devote the time to design your sounds so they can be well crafted, and also to save some time in the integration process. That's how I would answer to that question.
Cool. Anything you want to add, Frank, or should we move on?
It's okay. I think Renaud had the perfect answer.
Okay. All right. So Emily B asks, how does THX spatial audio differ from traditional surround sound? I'll tackle that one, and if any of you guys want to chime in, please do. Terms are kind of in flux. What meant one thing, a number of years ago might mean something differently today. When we think of surround sound, you think of what you might experience in a movie theater where there's fixed position speakers, or a home theater, right? 5.1 or 7.1. And all of your headphone technologies to deliver spatial audio or surround sound are based around creating an artificial environment that simulates a real world environment. And that's also part of where the HRTF process comes in as well. But surround sound is technically limited to the position of the speakers. When you're wearing headphones, you don't necessarily have a very clear designation to where those positional speakers are, but you are channeling that based on the fact that the audio is divided into channels. Whereas with these plugins, you're moving beyond what would be considered traditional surround sound and into a more spatial world where you'd create a sphere of audio around your head, and using objects and ambisonics, you're able to ensure that sound sounds more natural and is available more as points on a sphere than a specific channel where you're limited to a fixed position in space. So the answer is it's a much more advanced way of being able to hear an immersive audio environment that is more reflective of what the real world sounds like. but it does, and so therefore you're moving beyond what might be considered traditional channel-based surround sound into more of a realistic 360-degree spherical sound. Mike or anyone else want to add anything, or do you that kind of cover it?
No, I think you covered it perfectly. Yeah, it's great.
Okay. I'm going to jump to Carol Chen, who's asking, can this be utilized with mobile games? Once again, over to you, Mike.
Oh, absolutely. You can definitely leverage the THX Spatial Audio plugins for mobile.
Cool. I think we've got a question for Renaud and Frank here, which is from Anonymous. How did the THX Spatial Audio plugin fit in with your existing workflow?
We have tried a few different plugins for the results that we wanted to achieve, especially in the context of a horror game. And having the THX Spatial Audio plugin to have to play around with really cemented the direction that we wanted to take in terms of immersion. Not necessarily want to disclose the name of the other ones that we have tried, since we're focused on this one in particular. But again, it's really in our game, the positioning of the sounds and where they're coming from is especially important in terms of, first of all, the immersion, but second of all, the how could you say, the survival, let's say, of the main character that you're playing. So having the ability to work with that, and again, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, but again, working with the elevation, the true positioning, also the reflections is also very great, and sorry, I'm searching for my words. The priority system also that's built in the plugin is also really neat to use. Depending, I guess Mike can explain a little bit more on the technical side on what does that do, but it's as you've seen in the showcase, it's really a neat tool that we have. So how did it fit in our workflow? Well, it just went hand in hand, basically. Since it's really a plug and play solution, it wasn't that much fiddling in terms of integration and how we could use it. It was more of, in the end, what's the final result that we want to achieve? And this really helped us to craft a more cohesive vision of what we want to achieve with that.
Cool. That sounds great. Thanks. I think we've answered this question, but I'll just kind of re-emphasize it. Anonymous asks, how many virtual channels do the THX Spatial Audio plugins support? 7.1, 9.2. The answer is you don't really need to think in terms of channels anymore, because like I said, you're now working within a spherical environment where you're not limited to kind of assigning audio to channels. THX does have a spatial audio application, which does interpret channel-based audio. So games that output, like say 7.1, will get a 7.1 feed from a lot of the Razer products and some of our other customers as well. But in the context of these plugins, you're really moving beyond this notion of channels. You're essentially creating a full proper environment where you're no longer looking at placing the sound in a specific location that's near where you want the sound to be emitted from. You're actually able to place the sound exactly where you want it to be from. And it's much more natural sounding. All right.
If I may,
yep,
if I may just add to that, if a developer has specific content that is channel based, you can actually, for lack of better words, convert it into specific points in space. So it sort of simulates or emulates what channel-based speakers would be. So for example, if you have music that was recorded in 7.1 and you want to place it in the game, you can totally do it with our plugins by basically creating 7.1 virtual speakers around you, basically using that HRTF space and field.
Cool. All right. We'll jump to Denise or Dennis, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but ask, is there any other shape besides a square that is available for the virtual room? Mike, you want to tackle that one?
Yes. At the moment, that's a very good question, by the way. At the moment, we're limited to what's called shoebox rooms. So it is that sort of squarish rectangular shape in 3D. In the future, we will be releasing a version of our virtual room engine that will support arbitrary geometry. So it can be whatever geometry you happen to have in the game level. That should be announced. We're hoping, I don't want to necessarily give a date range, but just look for it in future versions.
Cool. Let's see here. Let's move on to Anonymous. Asks, what consoles will these plugins support? I believe the answer is PC, mobile, and Xbox via Wise. I think that's the main platforms. At the moment, we don't have a solution for PlayStation and some of the other consoles.
I'll just add to that, Jason, that Xbox, we don't have one right at the moment, but it's definitely something we are targeting. PlayStation 5 is also something that perhaps down the road, but at the moment, it's just not in the roadmap.
Cool. Jumping down some questions, we're getting off the plugins a little bit here. Question from, looks like, oh boy, I'm going to struggle with this name. Vincir File Cruz says, how many devices today support THX Spatial Audio technology? Well, I'm pleased to say that I don't know, because the answer is there's quite a few. We have THX Spatial Audio obviously in a significant number of Razer products, including Razer peripherals, as well as Razer laptops and some other Razer products on the roadmap. We also have other customers that have implemented THX Spatial Audio that are not Razer, but I won't dive into that at the moment. You can visit thx.com and we have a product finder, and you can look up, you can specify your search to THX Spatial Audio and get a list there. Let's see here. Another question is from Andrew Gomez, asks, are the premium audio settings for paying users stored in the game files, or are they in a separate local application that the game accesses when it runs? Is that something that we are able to answer at the moment, or is that something we're still working on, Mike?
I think that's something we're still working on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that yet.
Yeah, so one of the key components is sort of discussed is the ability to have the user purchase access to their personal HRTF, and that's part of how this is all being financed. At the moment, it's within the game, I believe, or at least local to the game, but we are working on a future where, you know, you can essentially buy once and use it with any game that supports it, but that's going to take a little bit more development. All right, so I think this is a good question for Frank and Renaud. Ayar C asks, are there any, quote, eureka moments or fun stories you can tell us from the developmental process for THX Spatial Audio? For example, comparing it to the real world.
Well, I got one little fun story. While I was integrating the sounds, like I said in the video, I have a few random positioning blueprints. I developed this in Unreal, by the way. But I had a few random positioning for the sounds, and I surprised myself while testing it because there was a sound that came up from the top of me, like in diagonal, and I really thought something fell behind me like while I was working. So I guess that would be a little fun moment, and I had to replay it in Wise just to make sure like I wasn't crazy, like I really heard this. So that's one of the fun stories. But as far as for Eureka moment, I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat myself again, but truly the elevation is really something that really surprised me to an utmost degree. Anyone who is a sound designer and doesn't have necessarily access to this type of technology or wants to do it vanilla, if I could use the term, and having to code it yourself, when you just have a plug and play setting that you just route to a bus and it works, I mean, it's just like, you can't get any better than that. So I guess that would be my Eureka moment for this.
Love that story, by the way. When you think, wait a minute, take off your headphones. Did that happen?
Yeah, that's it.
Definitely.
That's the whole point of it. That's what we're doing.
All right. So Anonymous asks, if I make a game with Unreal, will I miss any functionality that's on the Unity plugin? It's a good question.
If I may answer that, we're designing the plugins so that they're in parity between all the different versions. So for example, Unity and Wise and Unreal have the same features. Now there may be slight variations, but generally speaking, they're almost identical in how they work. In terms of end result with the virtual rooms, with virtual placement, with the ambisonic support, all that is supported in all three of the different versions.
Cool. Trying to see if we've got some questions that aren't kind of asking the same thing here. We talked about how many devices. Let's see, here we go. Anonymous once again asks, man, Anonymous is a very active poster here. How will HRTF integration work with these new development tools? So I'll take a stab at that one. So, you know, we have a tool for the user to go and capture the ear and, you know, sort of anatomy that they need in order to get the data. It'll be a app. It'll be sort of an external app that's kind of built into the process. It's then sent to a cloud-based machine learning server, which then uses that information to formulate the HRTF, which is then sent back to the game. and then replaces the default HRTF in the game and provides the end user with a toggle to switch between their personal HRTF and the default HRTF. In terms of how technically it works, we'll have to kind of dive into that as we start distributing the evaluation plugins and get into the specifics of your platform and your game. But essentially, it's an external server that then processes the data and returns the HRTF code, which then gets integrated into the game. Anything to add to that, Mike, or did that kind of cover it?
Yeah, I will just add that, as you mentioned, there is a generic HRTF that's there as a default, and there's absolutely nothing needed. It's just there automatically, and it works. So from a development standpoint, you have something to work with already, and there's nothing you need to do. But the process of the personalization comes in later and is external, as Jason said.
Cool. Mike, this is a question for you from Carl Schmidt. Will there be a way to use spatial audio from a browser, game, or app?
Absolutely. We are working on versions of our technology that will actually run, as WebAssembly and working in a browser. There's a lot of cool things that we can do that way. So, so that's definitely something we're looking at, and will be announced when it's available in the near future.
Cool. I know we're getting to the end of our time here, so I'll try to squeeze in a couple more questions. Stephen Mercurto, Good Grip, asks, how does THX affect competitive gaming? Esports-wise, can this be utilized, and has it been tested? I'll take a stab, and then Mike, maybe you can jump in, or any of the other folks. It improves you as the player because it does create a more lifelike and realistic environment. And playing a game using your personal HRTF makes the sound more natural to you. It sounds less artificial, and it is much more accurate in terms of being able to locate micro changes in where the placement of the sounds are, and therefore you can react faster and play better. We have done some research on that. I know VisiSonics has done a ton of that with their HRTF lab. And so I think overall, pretty much anyone that's been dealing with the HRTF world, particularly in the personal realm, there are plenty of testimonials as to how that does improve your ability to localize and then receive the data there. Anything to add to that, Mike, or did that cover?
I'll just add something very quickly. Some of the papers published from the team at the University of Maryland actually specifically talk about how personalized HRTFs actually greatly enhances spatial accuracy, but in particular elevation, which is, I know Renaud talked about how cool elevation is from a game development standpoint, but the personalization actually greatly enhances elevation, the sense of, so you hear sounds actually higher above your head and just have a overall just better perception of realism and smoothness of sound around you.
Cool. I think that brings us to the end. Looks like I'm getting the sort of a blinking light telling me to wrap it up. So I just want to take a minute to thank my fellow panelists here, Michael from VisiSonics, Renaud from Vibe Avenue, and Frank from iLLOGIKA. Greatly appreciate you guys joining the chat today, and really appreciate you being what will be the first game to use the THX Spatial Audio plugins. Really excited for when a more proper announcement can be made and we can share more with the audience here. Also wanted to just take a minute to thank all of the folks at Razer who have worked tirelessly to bring you Razer DevCon. It's been an honor to participate, and we're really excited to be a part of the first inaugural event. You guys have done a great job, and just wanted to thank you guys for including us and letting us announce our new product through this event, and hopefully get some developers on the platform using the plugins, and we'll celebrate those successes as they come. So with that, I think we're going to go to an ad and then back to our host with the most, Mr. Justin Cooney. So THX signing off. Thanks, guys.